Hey everybody, we're going to talk about solving absolute value equations. This will be part one of a two-part video um, looking at solving absolute value equations. We're going to start easy and then get a little bit more complex. So before we jump into it, let's first just get a quick refresher on exactly what is an absolute value. So an absolute value are these bars right here. They're also going to act like parentheses. So you can think of them as parentheses, but they are a mathematical operation. What they do is whatever number you put inside, they're really just calculating the distance this number is from 0. So what you can do is you can take a number line, plot the point 7, count how far away it is from 0. So the absolute value of 7 is 7. If you took the absolute value of 8, we would look at the point 8 on the number line, count how far away is 8 from 0, which is still 8. Now, when you think of, we're talking about distance from 0, distance is always going to be positive. So we always talk about distance being positive. So if I were to find the absolute value of, say, -7, well, you could do that on a number line, go down to -7 on the left, count how far away it is, and it's still 7 units away. So the key here is whenever you take the absolute value of something, you always get a positive number, because when we talk about distance is always positive. Also notice is when we did a positive 7, the absolute value of positive 7, the absolute value of -7, we still got the same answer. So we have to worry about positives and negatives can still give us the same answer. So let's jump into solving a few of these equations. If I took the absolute value of x equals 8 and I want to solve this, first thing I want to do is I got to get rid of these absolute values. Okay, x is almost by itself. I just have these absolute values around it. To get rid of them, what I'm going to do is, I could take away those, so I just get a plain old x. But the only thing is the 8, we're going to change it to a positive or negative 8. And I'll show you why here in a second. So a positive or a negative 8. And then what we can do is there's actually two different equations we have to solve here. And the reason being is there's both a plus there and a -8 there. So I have to worry about x being positive 8 and x being negative 8, which x is by itself. Both of these are solved. So my answers are going to be positive 8 and negative 8. Two different answers there. Now, to see how this all works, if I plug these in, I should get 8 equals 8. So if I plug in 8 here, I would have the absolute value of 8 equals 8. Absolute value of 8 is 8. 8 equals 8 works. And I can check -8. Absolute value of -8 equals 8. We get 8 equals 8. Works out as well. So x equals 8. X equals -8. So our next one here, absolute value of x equals -7. Now people are going to want to try and remove the absolute values, go to x, and then try and be like, well, I think it's plus or minus -7, question mark. It doesn't work. Notice, anytime we take an absolute value, we get a positive number. So absolute values have to give us a positive number. So if I have absolute value of some quantity, and I'm supposed to get a negative, that's not possible. So in this problem, we're going to get no solution. There is no number you can plug in for x so that you get -7. So some people are like, well, what about 7? Well, the absolute value of 7 is still 7, so you get 7 equals -7. That doesn't work. If you plug in -7, absolute value of -7 is still 7, so you get 7 equals -7. That doesn't work either. So this one would be a no solution. Okay, so these are basic examples of solving absolute value equations. We're going to look at a little bit more complex. So let's look at the bottom here. So I have the absolute value of x minus 7 equals 3. Now again, remember absolute values, they act as parentheses. So inside the brackets, I have an x and a -7. On the outside, I don't have anything. So what I want to do is I can remove those parentheses, those brackets, and get x minus 7. But in order to do so, on the right, I'm going to get plus or minus 3. So in order to take away the absolute values, I have to slap a plus or minus on the right. And we can do this because the right is positive 3. Now, all we need to do is split up this into two separate equations because I have both a positive 3 and a -3 here. So I'm going to have x minus 7 equals positive 3, and I'm going to have x minus 7 equals -3. So all I did is I split this up, positive 3, -3. I just have to solve each of these individually. So on the left side, solving this, we should be pretty good at solving an equation. Now we're going to add 7, and I get x equals 10. Go to the right one. Solve this one just a little bit different. Notice I'm not just going to say 10 and negative 10. Don't get caught up in that. Actually solve each one. So add 7, I get an x on the left side. On the right side, negative 3 plus 7 is 4. So don't get caught up in the habit of just saying, all right, well, I have 1, so do the minus 1. So like up here we had 8, negative 8. Don't think it would be like 10 and negative 10. We're going to get two different numbers here. One last example I want to show you in part 1 on absolute value. So we have the absolute value of 2x minus 1 equals 5. So there's nothing outside of my absolute values that I need to worry about. So we're ready to get rid of the absolute value bars. So I'm going to take those off and write 2x minus 1. But on the right side, instead of 5, we're going to put plus or minus 5. Only thing left to do is separate the two equations and solve. So I'm going to have 2x minus 1 equals positive 5, and 2x minus 1 equals negative 5. Then we're going to go and solve from here. So over here, to solve 2x minus 1 equals 5, we're going to add the 1, and that's going to give us, 1's are gone, so we get 2x equals 5 plus 1, which is 6. Solve from there, divide by 2, I get x equals 3. And I could always plug that in and check it, and I should get 5 equals 5. I'm going to solve the right one now. So I'm going to actually go through the motions of solving this. Don't just take 3 and automatically write negative 3. Go through the motions. Add 1. So I would have 2x equals negative 4. Divide by 2, and we get x equals negative 2. And again, I could always plug that in. It will work. I'll get 5 equals 5. And we're good. So that was solving absolute value equations, and that was part 1.